Hey, this is Ken. I'm going to be hosting a co-working session today. I'm going to be playing with zrok, this guy right here, and just going to be hacking on a particular use case that is using zrok with Docker. So we could probably split the use case into two. One would be shares and accesses with zrok, and the other would be self-hosting. And I'm going to focus first on shares and accesses. zrok is a peer-to-peer sharing tool. You can self-host it, but I think I'm going to just use zrok today. And yeah, so I'm going to be using a self-hosted instance of zrok for this test. So I'm going to need to get my environment enabled inside the container so I can do share and access. And I'm going to be trying to pay attention to chat. So just be patient with me while I manage multiple windows, but feel free to ask questions or stick ideas into the chat. All right. Just getting everything set up here. I'm actually not certain that Twitch viewers will be able to chat at me, so I'm going to give that a test. Yeah, it is actually working. So I should see all the chat messages in one place. Great. Awesome. All right, let's get started here. Most likely we are going to need I think I'm going to use Docker Compose just to keep all the container configuration in one place. But for a first attempt, I'm just going to try to mount my existing enabled environment for my self-hosted zrok instance into a container and use it. So let's see, I should have on my history a command already for running zrok, because we do have images. So it looks like the latest image is 031. So if I say status without any configuration, it's trying to use zrok.io, which is the platform, the public free platform, and it doesn't have any enabled environment stuff. So if I change this command to bind mount my home directory .zrok into, let's say, mount.zrok, and I set an environment variable of home equals, actually I wonder if that's going to work because it's not exposed in that environment variable isn't declared in the Docker file. Let's try it. Say mount is home. Unable to load zrok dir. So it's basically saying it doesn't have permission to read those files. That's fine. We can temporarily override the user. There we go. So that did work. Even though I didn't declare the home directory, it did pass through in the config. So that's good news. One minor problem. There's my secret token. So Clint, I'm sorry if you get bombarded on your self-hosted instance while I'm doing this. I will revoke it when I'm done, but for now I'm just going to keep trucking. In the unlikely event that you get attacked, I'm very sorry. I'm deeply sorry, and I will help you rebuild if you need it. But for the show must go on. So we do have a working environment. So really, we just need to, for the generic environment enablement, we just need to put this stuff in a configuration file and use it with the container that we already have. Let's get, actually I have a specific workspace I think I want to use for VS Code. Let's get that loaded up because I know that's got my zrok repo already. We'll find a home for this file. Welcome to the chat, Michael. So glad that you're here. Hey, Ford. So I'm just looking for my zrok repo so I can find a home for the file that I'm going to create here. So this is the Docker file that makes the image I was just using. I think I'll just add for now I'm just going to put my, yeah, I guess I better make a new directory. Michael says he just added an issue. Oh, that would be great. Yeah. So that when we're screen sharing, we don't share the secret. Yeah, treat some strings as sensitive and mask them, I think is what elide means. All right. Let me know if the sound is not good. It's what I usually use for conferencing, so it should be audible at least, but I can tweak it up or down. All right, let's make a new directory. Just keep this separate under Docker images. I'll make this this is really not a Docker image. Well, it will build. I think I'm going to have it build a custom image. So we'll just make a new folder here. This will be zrok share. We might be able to keep it very generic, but I'll start with specific since the share comes first and then the access. You have to have a share to access. So I'm going to use compose. So I'll make myself a Docker compose YAML file right here. And let's see, file history. I don't know how I got that open. All right. What have I done? Make myself a branch. Something's going on with my shell here that I didn't expect. I must have broken something in the last update. Oh, I made a directory. That's what I did. Okay. Let's try that again. Just need a file. All right. Hey, Enchanting Wolf. Welcome back to the stream. And do you ever, if you ever go on DevOps Brian's channel in Twitch, because I ended up using a repo that he had created. It was super helpful with Terraform for Linode. Anyway, unrelated to the immediate topic, I'm actually hacking on Zrok, which is, let's see if I can. Yeah, he's great. He knows his stuff. I learn a lot. So this little guy back here is our Zrok mascot, and it's a peer-to-peer sharing platform. Yeah, good. Glad to hear it. So it's built on OpenZD. It uses OpenZD, but it's, as a user, it's quite a bit simpler, and it does a really specific thing, which is sharing HTTP apps or files over HTTP. But anyway, it's HTTP right now. I think in a future version, it's going to be other stuff as well, like maybe just TCP, UDP streams, one or the other, or both. But right now it's files, and it's just anything you can do over HTTP. I've done it. I've used it to host a little Git repo, used it to host a static website. You can share files. I think so. We have an ARM build that's, and it's very lightweight. So it's built with Go. It doesn't have any dependencies. Actually, if we go to zrok.io, Pi 3. So the Pi 3 is 64-bit, but you probably have, on a Pi 3, you very well may still have a 32-bit Raspberry OS. And we do have a 32-bit download. So if I open up the website and go to downloads, latest, yeah. So whatever uname -m returns is what you want, uname -m. So I would get the x86-64 build, which is AMD 64 here, but you would want the ARM v7 download, and then that should work just fine. In fact, your Raspberry Pi 3 probably says ARM v7 for uname -m. Let's put that over there. So I was going to start writing a Docker compose. So I think that's only on Twitch, Clint. You don't have to be a... right. I just realized that. So I'm streaming to YouTube and to Twitch at the same time, and people on Twitch can probably only see Twitch chats, because Michael's on YouTube and Clint's on Twitch. So, and Enchanting Wolf is on Twitch. Do any of you see each other's chats, or is the restream agent duplicating everything everywhere, or am I the only one seeing everyone's chats? That could be confusing. All right. I think it would really... Yeah, well, you might have joined after Michael. I wonder if Michael can... Okay, so Michael is on YouTube and he only sees YouTube chats. So I'll propagate. I'll duplicate. I'll do the verbal traffic, play the network hub verbally for that. Quick recap. Oh yeah, Redford and Michael on YouTube. And so what you guys didn't see is me talking to Enchanted Wolf and Clint, and basically just talking about Enchanting Wolf's Raspberry Pi. And there's a download for that. And what Twitch didn't see up on YouTube is me saying that, is Michael saying that he put in an issue to hide the secrets. I don't know if you were here when I did it, but I totally shared my environment secret for your self-hosted instance, which I was planning to use for this demo. So if you want to revoke it, I can do a re-register, or if you want to just go along for the ride, then we can leave it for now and then revoke it afterwards. um, so sorry if you get bombarded by malicious public. Yeah, right. Clint says he'll keep an eye on it. Enchanting Wolf says, All right. I need a compose file, but I need a memory jogger. So I'm going to open up the compose reference so I don't make too many mistakes. Compose file reference. You never know, Enchanting Wolf says. You never know about Anon out there. They might have ideas for what they might be thinking. What can I possibly do? I mean, hey, maybe it's a good problem to have. It's a self-hosted instance. We can just make another one, and you might learn something about zrok along the way. Love to have some security research done on it while we're at it, All right. I wonder if there's like a little template here we can use as an example. This reference gets right into very focused examples. So yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Clint. He said he can just make a note, just reinstall it. And this will help us make sure everything's good to go. Going through that process again. Compose file pre-example. I mean, I've written a bunch of these, but it would be helpful just to have like a quick little scaffolding to remind me where everything goes. Alrighty, so we'll say major version 3. This will be my zrok share. And I'm not going to build just yet until I really need to customize the image. So far, it looks like I'll be able to do what I need to do. Michael says I can just delete my shares and my environment when I'm done, which I can do from inside the I can do that from inside the zrok UI, which I'll bring up since I'm talking about it. Let's go back and get that link. What was it? So I got the link from zrok status. Oh, Michael says I can do it with the zrok CLI too. Clint says I got to replace the Clint on Twitch says I got to replace all these terrible Twitch icons with OpenZiggy emoji. I have no idea how to do that. I mean, when I authorize restream for my Twitch or my YouTube, then it authorizes their bot in all of those channels. So it's doing all the work. I don't really have control over it. I'd have to write my own bot, I guess, and I'd have to like register my app with Restream somehow in order to do all of this fancy duplicating of streams. All right, so Michael on YouTube says I can just stop all my shares and then zrok disable, and that'll revoke this secret token. Right, and then because then I would need another environment enable token, which is what I think this is. And of course, zrok would then create any ZD identities that it needs with the new environment. I'm not sure what. Oh, it's a wolf. Ios Maui Evil. I'm not sure what that is. Enchanting Wolf. I think it's an emoji on Twitch. Oh, Michael says I don't have it right. I would need to because the environment enable secret is persistent, so that would actually need to be surgically pruned from the controller's database. to fully revoke that. That's okay. I think Clint's just gonna nuke and pave. Yes, Enchanting Wolf. My YouTube, which I don't use very much except to post silly stuff, is the same name as Twitch, but this YouTube that I'm on right now is OpenZD, the YouTube channel where I'm simulcasting is OpenZD. So my command is going to be some. Let's start with zrok status. Don't have any depends on yet. And our volume is going to be so we're just going to have the one share so far. Michael says we can nuke the instance. On YouTube, Michael says we can nuke the instance, but it's very easy to fix this after the fact. He can help with removing that record from the database if needed. And Michael, isn't it a future feature of Zrok to make environment enable tokens revocable or have some more management around that? Let's see here. That looks ready. So that should give us the same result. So here was the thing that worked the first time. Run Docker run, mount the home, set home to /mnt, so that's where Zrok looks for its environment stuff. And then we had to run as root because the default user didn't have permission to read that bind mount, which makes sense since it is owned by me, my UID, not the default user. And we ran Zrok status. Michael on YouTube says enable token revocation is coming in the next release. Well, the next 0.4, which is like a major release. Okay, so let's do the exact same thing with compose. GitHub, Zrok. And we need to go into Docker images. So this is the directory where we have our compose file. Michael on YouTube says Zrok 0.4, maybe early summer, maybe springtime. Clint on Twitch says it's a good thing he checked in. Oh, so it was, the instance was actually down for a minute, but now it should be up and working. So Michael on YouTube says that some of the good stuff from 0.4 is actually going to make it into 0.3. So there's maybe some activity going on to backport features. That's cool. So let's run our same command, our same Docker command, only using compose this time. So we're going to say, going to basically subsume the stuff in here. User is root. Maybe we can find a way around that. Since Zrok in the container image runs, the default user is just nobody, which is like a really high user ID, numeric user ID, 65534, I think. It's actually nobody, right? So 65 UID 65,534. So we could mount a named volume instead of a bind mount with Docker, and it would be writable by the user. We just need to take into account the whole flow. So the simplest starting point here for me is that I've already got an enabled environment on the Docker host, and I want to share that into the container and use it for share and access. So several degrees of refinement on the way here, but we'll start with this, just getting this into code so we can start tweaking things. Well, YAML, not code. So sorry if this is making your eyes bleed, but YAML is how compose works. All right, we got that moved over. I'm just subsuming the options that I had wrote out on the command line here into our compose file, so I can just run Docker compose. I think that might be it. Let's try it. Docker compose. Oh. Neither an image. Oh, right. So our image is OpenZD zrok, currently published in Docker Hub. Docker compose up. We got something. Unknown command zrok for zrok. Right, so the default command is already zrok. So I think we just need to add the args. In compose jargon, command is args in the Docker API. So that is now working. All right. So don't have any dependencies yet for this service. So our status, we can express that as a list. Compose is saying there's only a string there, so that's a list of one element. Quick message break. All right, back to it. So we can certainly run status, and I think the easiest thing for me to do would be to create a, go ahead and try creating a share for a little demo server. So I'm going to add another service here to act as a demo server inside the isolated Docker bridge network. So this will be our, we'll just call it HTTP bin. Clint on Twitch says zrok test endpoint. Oh yeah, that's true. I never memorized the syntax for that, but zrok does have a little built-in server. Test endpoint. I think it just opens up a web server. Yeah, Clint on Twitch says localhost 9090. So that just opens up a little simple web server there. Which I should then be able to hit. I'll just copy what he put. Michael says do zrok test endpoint help. So we can set the address. If it's not 127, we can set the port. Default is 9090. Yeah, Redford on YouTube is asking if we can do a demo, if this would enable a demo. And it's the goal is not so much a demo, but that's certainly a stop along the way, Redford. The just want to enable people to generally use zrok with Docker, since it makes it unnecessary to install zrok. If you have Docker, you can just run it directly. And then, so we want to start with sharing something and then accessing that share with zrok running in Docker. All right, so we've got our little test server up, and I can hit that in a web browser. We can see the requests coming in. So I'm going to run test endpoint inside a second container. So we'll just keep building out our compose file. This will be zrok test. This will be a little web server, and we're going to use the same image. Redford on YouTube says, when you're sharing directly from Docker, oh, I can just put it on the screen, can't I? Oh wait, everybody can read it. When you're sharing directly from Docker, does it include the OpenZD security and connectivity superpowers? Well, zrok is built on top of OpenZD, so it leverages a subset of the capabilities of ZD. But generally speaking, absolutely yes. You can for example, superpower being that your traffic is encrypted from private to private. Like if you're doing zrok share private, then your peers can communicate securely. But one of the major use cases for zrok is to only secure the back end while the front end is public. So for a public share, there's server TLS, which gives you one-way encryption, or one-way TLS, not mutual TLS. So there are different levels of security. And zrok just makes it really easy to share stuff over HTTP. So we've got our test image defined. I don't think we're going to need a special, a privileged user for this because it's not going to need a volume. We're just going to run test endpoint instead of status. This is actually going to need to be share. So we'll create a public share first. And it'll be HTTP zrok. Oh, these have to be domain names. It can't be underscores. I'll just do dashes. Zrok test. Forgot about that. Use domain names for your projects so that they work with DNS. Actually, I don't know if it would throw an error. I'm not sure what the domain name would be if I use an underscore at that point. So when inside of a compose project, all the compose services like zrok share and zrok test get domain names and they can resolve each other. So I'm going to share public zrok test on port 9090, which is the default. I'm not sure if I want to use this inline JSON syntax, or if I want to actually spell it out as a YAML list. I think this is, it's not too complex yet, so that's probably going to work just fine. And for zrok test, I don't think we're going to need, we don't need an enabled environment because it's just running a simple web server. So let's try that. Let's make sure that zrok test actually runs. Compose up zrok test. Found orphan containers. All right, looks like there are no errors. That looks good. So now let's try bringing up the full project. See what we get. Error dev tty, no such device or address. So something wants standard in to be a tty. That's coming from the zrok share. Let me debug this by running the same command with the Docker CLI. And Michael on YouTube says you might want to use headless. All right, let me check the help to understand exactly what's going on there. And I might need to do something with an entry point script on the container because it wasn't stopping when it got the signal, at least whatever PID1 was inside the container didn't respond to sig term. So I might have to do like a background wait signal management, like a bash trap, signal trap for that. Or it might just be something we can add into zrok to notice the signal. Let me do a share. So Michael said we might want to use headless. Here we go. Disable TUI and run headless. That's exactly what it is. I forgot. So the terminal user interface is obviously going to need standard in to be a tty. So now I understand why I need to add this. Share public headless. That should fix it. So I'm going to run compose up again. All right. To access your share, go to this endpoint. Okay, I see the requests coming in. Error proxy dial to 9090, so it can't hit the server for some reason. Let me check on what I wrote here. Network zrok share default created. Trying to figure out why the server is not becoming available. Let me just try to expose it with a port forward, and then I'll see if I can hit it from my laptop. So we'll do 9090 on that and expose it. Oh yeah, that's a good tip. I do like to do that when I run ZD stuff because I don't, whenever I'm just needing human readable logs and I'm not trying to ingest the logs as JSON into some kind of aggregator. So our environment will add pfx log no JSON. String true as opposed to Boolean true, since it's an environment variable. All right, run up again. Well, let's try running just that one container and see if I can then, can't seem to get any output from test endpoint. It's probably okay as long as I can access it. Connection refused. So double check our port forward here. Doesn't actually look like it's running. So it did cancel. It says cancel, but then it says running. Yeah, test endpoint logs when it actually receives requests, right? So we're forwarding 9090 to the container. Seems like that ought to be working. Oh yeah, the blue and the green. I'm gonna make it bigger for now because I don't have on the top of mind exactly how to go and adjust those colors. Yeah, it looks like it's still running. Clint's asking if the containers stayed running. And so it's running zrok test endpoint and it's listening on the container. It's listening on 90. It should be listening on 9090. Did I remember the default port correctly? Default 9090. Oh, that's the problem. The default listener is 127.0.0.1. So I just need to add address 0000 since it's in a container. That's what it is. That'll fix our server. And then we don't actually need this to be exposed as long as it's working. Clint asks if you list TCP listeners inside the container. It's, you know, it was listening on 127.0.0.1 inside the container. That's the problem, exactly. So now it should work. So I'll just replace this container. And now we have a new share URL. Put this into the browser. Yay, it's working. All right. So that is a simple share with compose on a Docker isolated network. Yay. Let's see. right, so what's the next step? So we've got a little demo application. We could add any hey, there's Brian on YouTube. Welcome. Woo! So we could easily add a second test server like this. Forget the name of the image for HTTP bin, but it doesn't have to be Xerox providing the server that we're sharing. That's just a useful, easy test. I am searching for an image called go HTTP bin. There it is. And this listens on port 8080. Okay. So we could make a share for this guy. We don't need to specify a command. I'll just make a note to self that it's listening on port 8080. And then if we change our public share over here to Xerox to HTTP bin test on port 8080 and run our project again, just rerun everything in a new terminal pane. Then we should be able to get to the other application, HTTP bin application on this URL. There it is. And so we could use this as a webhook server too, since we can send a post request to that. For example, if I say post to this address with data like this equals that, or Xerox equals easy peasy, method not allowed. So Nginx, oh, Clint, you have to allow post request through your front end proxy for me to use it as a webhook server on a public share. Aha, you're only allowing GET requests. But I should still be able to do that with a private share. And I wonder if our main Xerox.io instance allows post requests over Xerox. I mean, it would make sense for it to allow that because there's lots of useful applications, especially for sharing APIs with post requests, put requests, basically allow all the CRUD verbs would be a good idea. So Michael on YouTube says the Xerox.io does allow post. And Clint says, since I'm using his self-hosted instance for this, he says it's not specifically allowed. Yeah, you might have to just add it into your Nginx config so that post requests can come through. All the verbs for sure. I mean, there might be some that don't make sense for Xerox. I don't have an exhaustive inventory top of mind, but I would think permissive HTTP verbs for a Xerox instance makes sense. So it can do all the things. All right, what do we want to do next? Definitely taking suggestions here. We've got a share described as a Docker Compose project, where one of the containers is the Xerox share. It's providing the little backend proxy here. And then we've got a couple of test servers, both of those work. And so we could make a new project that just duplicates this one partially and is a zrok access. And then use that. Then we could have a container inside. We could do like a private share and feed the token into the access container, the access project as a variable, and then access the private share. So it would be from Docker isolated bridge network to another isolated network. But I think the simpler, so that would, yeah, it needs to be a private access, right? That's the only thing that makes sense. Because if it was public, then you can just hit the public URL. You don't need any zrok to do that on the access side. Clint says we need to update the Nginx guide. Yeah, you're probably right. Like we need to add in the thing about the verbs, about the HTTP verbs, right, Clint? That's what you're saying. So I'm going to make a private. So maybe this should be a public share. So this will be a private share, which we'll need for our private access. So now we've got two composed projects. We've got a zrok private share and a public share. And our public share is running share public, and then with headless. And we can do something very similar with our private share, but we're going to need to capture the output. So let's do share private, headless, and go to our zrok test instance. So that's going to use my same environment from the Docker host, which that actually might be a really useful case. Although, no, I was thinking we might want to, yeah, we're going to need to solve for the enable flow. We're going to need to provide a way to do that because it's not safe to assume that zrok is installed on the Docker host. That's the whole point. Well, that's a big part of the reason for using Docker is so you don't have to install it on the host. So we're going to need to do like a zrok enable container, I think, that creates an image and then, sorry, creates a named volume inside the compose project and then mount that onto the share container. Let's go ahead and get the private share and private access done and then do the enable stuff because that's very prerequisite. That's my vote anyway. Still open to ideas. So let's change our public share over to private, share this server, and the rest of it can stay the same. So now when we run our project, in the private share, oh, well, actually, I'm going to orphan that project. Oh, Clint says, can you try post? So I guess he added the post verb, maybe all the verbs to his zrok. Let's try it. That is set up for go HTTP bin. Here's my URL for the public share. And I'll do a post request to that. Method not allowed, Clint, from Nginx, right? Yeah, Nginx. in Ubuntu. Sorry, man. Yeah, I can do that. I'll just put it in the background. Oops. Got confused there for a second. So you probably want to run like curl x post to that address. And it looks like my chat only went to YouTube and you're in Twitch, so I don't think you saw that anyway. So I'm gonna put that. Let me make sure it's working here. Let's see, curl x post, because unless you have HTTP, this would be what you would do. Method post not allowed. So you can reproduce it with this command right here. I'll send that to you in the other chat. Type. There you go. You should have that client. How does the delay seem to be with the streaming? Does it seem like it takes a long time for me to respond to your chat? Or is it, okay, Clint on Twitch says pretty quick. So that might not be an issue at all. That's awesome. Glad to hear it's working. All right, I'm gonna switch my Compose project into the private share and run that. See what we get. All right, there's the test server, go HTTP bin is listening. Zrok access private is here. And where's the log? Oh, that's right. There's no log output from the Zrok test endpoint. But if we create, so I should be able to access, I'll try this first with my laptop, which has the enabled environment for the same Zrok instance. So I'll say access private, and then I'll visit this in a web browser. Cool, so that's working. Now we just need to be able to access it through Docker and let Docker provide the proxy. So did I already duplicate my project? I need a private access project now. So let's copy this and paste it. Just duplicate some stuff. This will be our private access project. So this will be private access. This will be what I do? I changed the wrong one. Private share. But before I save that, I need to avoid orphaning that. So I'm going to down that project. Now I don't seem to be having any problem with the process getting stuck. So just going to tweak the names on these Compose services really quick here. Private share, make sure they match. So this is our private share, private access, and public share. Meaningful names for the win. All right, let's start over here. Now we want our private share to be running, and we want to access it with a private access. So I'll get the private share running. And that gives us a share key, zrok access private. Oh yeah, Michael says don't forget headless. And it should have been copied over. Since I just duplicated the share project, I'm going to tweak it for the access. So same image, not building anything yet. We're just going to use the zrok image latest. And so our command is going to be something like this. Nope. My clipboard malfunctioned again. Why is that happening? Or did I just forget? Let me try this. Key command. Okay, it's working now. Great. So our access will be zrok access private. And this is going to open up a proxy. I think the most useful thing would actually be to expose that proxy as a port forward on the access container. So that is by default going to be port 9191, I believe. But I am going to need to make that private access listen on 0.0.0.0 because I think it listens on 127.0.0.1, which is the container loopback, which will not respond to any TCP connects from port forwards since it's on the container. Zrok access private help. That's where I'm at. Okay. So bind string address to bind the private front end. Just need to say bind 0.0.0.0 when we do access private. Bind. Looks like it's going to be 0.0.0.9191. And that's going to open up a proxy. And we do need our environment enabled, but we don't need any servers on the access side. So let's try this. Now we've got our private share running in the top pane, and we're going to run this zrok access private in the bottom pane. Need to get into the access project and say compose up. There's some extra options in there that I didn't need. Unknown command zrok for zrok. Okay, this is confusing. What did I do wrong? Oh, I didn't need to say zrok, just the args, because the command is zrok. It just runs, the container always runs zrok. So we don't need to say build. We don't even need to say force create in this case. Oh yeah, you tried to remind me, Michael, and I still forgot. I must have deleted the headless part. This is getting to be a longer command line, which makes me want to format it better. Okay. Unknown flag headless. Maybe I need to put that in a different spot. So that is it a global? Zrok access. I don't seem to have a headless for access. I can try moving the option up in front of, yeah, maybe that might be what's happening. I might be able to fake it by passing in, by providing the TTY. I don't know for sure. To try it. Doesn't, yeah, it's choking on the headless option. So I can try mounting a TTY device. I can just say standard in and TTY, just like the Docker commands, only they call it standard and open. So if I take out headless and do standard and open true with the TTY, maybe that'll just give me the terminal interface. Unable to access post, got 500. Access internal server error. Well, why is it trying to post? Well, it's probably trying to use the token. So zrok ran, the zrok access ran, but it got a 500 from the server. Maybe something happened. Let me try zrok access private again on my laptop, see if that token is still good. So I got the same error as if that access had stopped working. I don't know why the token became invalid, but I'll just create another one and then try it. Maybe it's because maybe I used that token earlier on my laptop and it's a single use. That might be what it was. So I'll change out the token that I'm passing in the access container for the new one, which hasn't been used yet by me, although one of you might have used it, and try that. Allocated front end. So the TUI doesn't actually appear, but oh, there it is. It's just kind of garbaged, all gobbledygook. But we should have a proxy on 9191 now, even though the terminal interface isn't quite visible. That is actually working. So the access container is providing a localhost proxy over to the share. Cool. So I'll create a zrok issue if you didn't already, Michael, to add headless mode so that we just get, we would just need like a little log message about the bind address being available as a proxy instead of the terminal UI for the access. Cool. I'm going to take a quick breath here and try to figure out what to do next. Chat me up if you have any ideas. So we got public share, and private access working. I think it would be cool to see a client app inside the private access project that is working with the server application. So we can use the webhook server for that. We go into our private share. We can change this to use the HTTP bin test. So just host that on port 8080 instead of the zrok test endpoint. That gives us basically an API server. It's a REST webhook very versatile testing server that should give us responses if everything is working. So I'm going to change my private share to host that instead. Actually, I want to correct this because I'm saying build unnecessarily. So containers now, and we have a private access token. Put that into my private access project here. And let's actually make this an environment variable. Yeah, let's do, actually, I think in Compose I can do this the easy way without the list syntax. I'm going to try it just because it's going to clean this up quite a bit if it works. So then we'll add an environment here to accept zrok private access token. And instead of providing a value, we'll just leave it blank so that it gets passed through to the container. And then when this runs inside the shell interpreter, let's try that first, and then I'll add syntax or whatever I need to make it work. Access private and zrok private access token. And we want another container image here. Well, let's get that working first, and then I'll add the client app. So stopping the old one, starting the new one. Right. So it got an error because I forgot to set the token to this value. All right, this time it does look like it's working. So let's go back to our browser and make sure that we can see the test server. Cool, that's working. All right. Can I reuse the same private access token? Still working. Looking good. All right, so we can reuse the private access token probably as many times as we want, as long as it's still running on the share side, or as long as it's still shared. And so now we want a client app to actually use the proxy that's being provided in the container. We've got it forwarded from the Docker host, so that's convenient. But what would be really cool is if we can just use BusyBox. It's just BusyBox. BusyBox. And our command will be give it a, it implies born shell, I think. So how about we just try, I think it has curl built in. So we'll say curl and HTTP zrok private access on port 9191. We'll just call the get endpoint. Try that. Actually, we can clean this up a little bit so that it's easier to read. So we'll just call that over and over every 3 seconds, as long as it's working. Trying it now. So we're going to say zrok bit access token is this. Docker compose up. Retainers if needed. Cannot start busybox. Okay, so probably need to tell it run shell instead of while true. That's okay. Not found. Well, I wonder if it has wget then. Wget can't connect to remote host. Can't open get file exists. Open get file exists. So it does have wget, but oh, this should be capital O, standard output. Can't connect to remote host. Connection refused. Didn't work on the first try. I wonder if it works on the second try after 3 seconds. I might have to separate my output here. Yeah. So let's run these in separate containers so I can see what's going on with the log output. So first I'm going to run the private share. And detach it. Oops. So we'll run that in the background. And then I'll run in the foreground our busybox container so we can just see what it's saying more clearly. I should have it print a little status message so I can actually get the reassuring info output. Did I mess up my URL here? 9191 should be listening inside the Docker bridge. So I can see it from my laptop with the port forward through the Docker host. But I'm not, for some reason, wget running in the busybox container isn't pulling it up yet. Not sure why. Let's try it again. So we want to just run the busybox container. There we go. Okay, interpolation format or command option. Oh, right. I didn't put a semicolon after that. And this is YAML for collapse everything onto one line. So it strips new lines. Try it again. Oh, still. What's the issue there? Oh, right. Well, we've got single quotes, double quotes. Oh, args headers. That looks, is that response? Yes. Cool. That is the response. So it's working. Cool. We got a private access working inside the container using the private proxy provided by the other container inside the same compose project. Clint on Twitch says HTTP bin returns that error code. I guess you tried the curl and you got the same 405. So if you try patch, so the command that I was trying was XOL. You just can't put or patch to /. Oh, so when I said post, oh, I forgot to put the / post on there. It's actually, what did I do wrong? Oh, that's an old public share. The one that I sent you has a different token. That's actually working. My bad. I forgot to put the / post on there. HTTP bin. Sorry. I hope you caught some geese. They're good eating, I hear. Well, while you were away, we now have a private share running in the top pane and a private access running down here. And the busybox container just loops over running wget against the proxy and getting back a response from the private share, which is running HTTP bin. Now I'm like, what should we do? Because that's 3 useful projects that all work together, demonstrating different ways to do it. Maybe docs, maybe a demo showing it all together. Yeah, how about a set of steps to do a private, start with a public share, how to run the public share in Docker, and then how to run a private share and a private access in Docker. Does anybody think that showing how to do this without compose would actually be important? Oh no, I remember now. As an aside, I wanted to do the enable stuff with a named volume instead of getting the environment from a bind mount from the Docker host. Well, yeah, actually, I think that's probably a good place to leave it. If you've got to go, Clint, and you want to tear it down before you go, you can go ahead and do that, and then I'll just switch over to using staging or something. Can do that. Cool. So we're at a good stopping point here. I'm gonna collect my thoughts and think about how to do the enable inside of the compose project. Oh, Michael's asking how we got around the missing headless. So in the compose project for the private access, I did this right here. So as far as zrok is concerned, it's just sending output, and so as long as the TTY is available, it's going to try to use it. And so the output was very garbled, but I just sent it to the background and then was able to use this BusyBox container as a client to talk through the proxy and got the expected response from the API. It's a REST test, HTTP bin on the other side. So that worked. And I think the next step is to think about how to do the enable with a named volume instead of getting the environment from a bind mount like this. So that makes a lot of sense to make it a part of the project. Basically, Docker Compose gives you some lifecycle management around a collection of containers. So we can persist the state in a named volume that we declare inside of our project and then reuse it for any accesses or shares in that project. That means that each project needs their own environment to be enabled. Although it could be, it's just a separate storage that's being persisted. Since we have the Compose project split up by use case, that is like access or share, then each one has their own storage. So we'll need to do the enable. We'll need to provide the enable token for each. And so I think I'm going to see if I can do that with an init container using the dependency. So we'll just add it at the top here since it's going to be the first thing that runs. And I want to do this first on the public share. So we'll say zrok enable. And this is going to allow us to stop being root as well, I think. So we'll say we want to, oh yeah, I finally realized that I could just give it a YAML string instead of this inline JSON. We'll clean that up a little bit. It's one of the things that Compose makes nice. So for our zrok enable command, we're gonna have our share isn't going to run until enable runs. I think that's how that works. So first we'll run enable. See you, Clint. Clint is out. And I'm guessing that Clint's self-hosted zrok is no more. So our zrok enable container will be like an initialization container, and it is going to run, how do you do it? Zrok enable help zrok enable token. So we'll just zrok is implied by the image, so we'll say enable zrok env enable token. And we'll need to bring that in from the environment. You can just do it that way. There are two different, we can make it a list or a dictionary, apparently, inside of compose. So I guess I do want that to be consistent, even if we can do it both ways. I'll just do it that way. It works better with the syntax highlighting. Although the key equals value does imply the string nature of an environment variable, the string type. Either way, it can be expressed. Okay. So we've got our token, our enable. We need a volume down here. This will be our volumes, and this will be our zrok env. And we will, instead of mounting, so if we're running as nobody and our home directory is /, which I believe is the case. Yeah, so nobody's home directory is /. So I'm just going to work with that. I'm not going to try to change it just yet. We're going to mount zrok env on /.zrok. And I'm going to stop overriding the home directory. Although we could put it anywhere. I guess that that's a little cleaner. It's a little less surprising if we put that. At least that's a little bit easier to see what's going on. So do we want the mount volume to be our whole home directory or just the .zrok? I think we just want it to be .zrok or .dir for zrok, where all the configuration lives. We'll see if we have to set any special modes for that. So we are going to need to duplicate this stuff. So it's the same for the enable container and the share container. Now let's see. So if we, oh yeah, we're going to need to set our zrok API endpoint as well. And that's going to get stored in the environment. So I'll use this testing instance for this when we do our enable. And we'll pass the enable token in as an environment variable. So I need to go get my enable token for this, which you can do by following the getting started guide for your own account. So I'm just going to get that on my clipboard. Oh no. I can't access the staging UI for some reason. Trying to fix it over here. Weird. Struggling to use Xerox staging. Trying to figure it out. All right, finally got in. Make sure that is actually working. Yay, all right, now I have an environment. So I'm gonna disable the one on my laptop. And enable it inside the container instead. But I need to update the environment variable that I used because I shortened it. Let's give this a try. So we want to run a public share for our HTTP bin test server. Compose is enable, depends on, should be an array or an object. So we'll just wrap this right here. All right. So the enable container is saying unable to open zrok metadata and tty no such device. Unable to load environment. Oh, that's from the public share, right? Which I expected because the enable failed. So let's try to figure out why the enable failed. Unable to open zrok dir metadata ignoring. Why does it want a tty? I can give it one, but I don't understand why it needs a tty to do this. Zrok enable token. So the private share, we can duplicate the tty stuff. I guess, oh, that was actually the private access where that was. Okay. So on our public share, for some reason, the enable container wants a tty, or it's complaining about it. I'm not sure if that's actually the issue. I think it said that it's going to ignore. So we're mounting this volume on here. Do we have to do something special to make it writable? Not sure. So our enable says, oh, enable gave us a seg violation, segmentation violation. Michael, I got a panic from the enable command. Oh, well, I did give it I gave the enable command. Michael says that it probably needs a tty and a headless option. So I did give it a tty. Let me see if headless offers, sorry, if zrok enable has a headless. I'm not sure if Michael is saying that it needs to be added to the program or if I just need to add the option. So let me try just adding the option. When we do enable, let's say headless. So I did give it a tty though, and it got the same problem, the same error. So Michael clarified that it needs to be added to the program. So it doesn't know about headless yet. So our enable is actually saying, right, it says unknown like headless if we try to pass it. And let me clean this up a little bit. Just run the enable. So unable to open zrok metadata, that's just a warning. We're ignoring that. So we don't actually know what it's, okay, contacting zrok, and we get our little terminal animation, permission denied, there we go. So error saving metadata in .zrok metadata JSON, permission denied. Let me see what I need to do to grant write permission in the named volume that's created by the Compose project. Docker Compose mounts volumes as root. Actually, we can test that everything else is working just by temporarily running as root, and then back that off once we figure it out. Should be trying to contact zrok to enable this environment. Contacting the zrok service, zrok enabled. Great. So with that, I wonder if I will be able to run my public share, if it'll be able to read from that same permission denied. Yeah, so it's just permissions errors, it looks like. If I were to run my public share as root also, I'm guessing that would work just fine. It'd be able to read the environment from the named volume. Look up oh right, I didn't actually, I should just start the entire thing then. Well, I need to, the enable command, I need to only run once. So I think it's gonna error this time since it's already done. No, it skipped over it. It actually, so Compose isn't programmed right now. I haven't configured it to care what the exit code is. It exited with non-zero, but then it just happily ran the subsequent service. Well, it's reusing the same storage, Michael. So in this case, it said you already have an enabled environment and exited with non-zero like I'd expect. And then the public share just used the environment that had already been stored in the Docker volume. So I think it's good the way it's storing the enabled environment. But it does mean that I have an environment for each of these projects. But each project will keep using the same environment. Yeah, each project has its own persisted storage. And it'll keep using that unless I destroy the project, which is, so Compose provides a little bit of lifecycle management for that. Like if I do a compose down, it would just destroy the storage without doing a disable. And so that environment would then be permanently orphaned. Good idea. I need some kind of hook, like to run zrok disable when the project is destroyed, when it's down. So compose down hook. Docker compose. So if it does get orphaned, we can always destroy it in the web console, but it would be tidy if it said, if we could get the Docker compose down to run disable. Down post script. What do they call it? Run a script. Before starting containers, most people want to do init, but we want to do cleanup. Down cleanup. This is not something I've ever done with compose, and I wonder if there's even a way to disable the environment automatically. Might just have to leave it at orphaned for now to stay on the happy path, because I don't see an obvious way to run the cleanup hook. And we can always delete it from the UI. All right, so we've got an enabled environment. It'll try to enable every single time, but it'll only succeed the first time. And the problem we're facing is that we have to run it as root. So we might need an init container to actually set the permissions in the volume. I don't see a way to specify the mode. Let's go back to our compose file reference. Look at volumes. So we can say options driver, driver ops, type, source, target. There's no permissions so far. Type, options, those would be mount options. And we can say read write, but it's read write by default. Type source target, no copy. Does anybody know how to set owner and group on a mounted volume? I want to actually verify what the file modes are inside that container. So if I say just run the zrok public share on bash instead of the normal command, I'll just do thing and then I'll exec in. That's a warning. Service zrok public share. Oh, right, because I did run. So I'm root right now. So my mounted volume is owned by root. That's the problem. So I could run an initialization container as root, change the permissions in the volume. Let's try that. That will declare the permissions before anything else runs. All right, so our zrok enable service depends on the enable init. Init is just going to change the owner of .zrok in our mounted zrok env volume, and then we should be able to run everything else as non-root. That's actually working. So that fixed the permissions issue in our named volume and gives us a public share with one command, assuming that the enable token is provided the first time that it's run. So the next step then would be to duplicate this initialization step to the private share project. Also going to need a volume, so private share, add this stuff at the top, and need this down at the bottom. So now we should be able to do the same thing with our private share. Enable token from the environment the first time it runs, and that'll give us an additional environment. I don't know if you can hear me, Michael, but there seems to be something wrong with the staging UI. I'm going to try clearing all site data and relogging in so I can share it. Now it's working. I just got some kind of bad state. All right. going on here. I'm trying to drag these things around so I can see what's related. So these are all environments. The nobody at hash would be our container environments that got enabled, possibly orphaned. And it doesn't look like I can actually click on them in the UI. So that might be a bug. So I thought that I'd be able to get to them, like access them here in the UI. Well, I'll come back to that. The share is actually working. So let's try a private share now. We've got our enable token in the environment as zrok enable token. So I'm just going to try doing an up on the private share. So enable got a sig_sev segmentation violation this time. Let's try running that one in isolation. I feel like I ran into this earlier, but I don't remember what I did. So it was with the public share. When it ran up, I got the segmentation violation from the enable command. Oh, it was the TTY thing, right? But I'm in the private share now, and I did provide the TTY. Maybe it was the TTY. I'm trying to go back in my history to what's happening to see what we did. Zrok enable, tried recreating it, tried it with headless, that didn't work. Up, recreate. The enable, then we hit the permissions issue. Recreate, enable. Yeah, then we hit the permissions issue. Let me start fresh. Let's do that again. Let's do things in the right order. First init. Did I remember to mount everything on the init container? Yes. Volumes. Okay. So the busybox init runs as root and changes the owner to match the UID GID of nobody. Run in subsequent zrok containers on the mount point, and then we try to run enable, but it's seg faults. There's no output from the init container, but we can make it more verbose to make sure it's doing something useful. Might have to actually put this in quotes. All right. So there were no changes, so it didn't spit out anything because I only gave it -C. So now we should be able to run enable under normal circumstances, but we're still getting that seg violation. Unable to open zrok metadata ignoring, that's just a warning. And then it panics with the runtime error, invalid memory address or nil pointer reference. Maybe there's another permissions issue. Maybe it needs to do something. Let me try running it as root. Since it ran as root the first time in the other volume, which I never destroyed. So if I let enable run as root, that doesn't change anything. Huh. This part of the project is identical. This part is identical to the public share, which is working. I literally copied it over. Did I miss the environment? No. Trying to use the same enable token for a second environment. Well, let me see if I can reproduce it by destroying the project and starting over with the public share, which was working just a moment ago. And just to demonstrate that, if we bring it up, public share uses the environment from the volume. It's fine. I can go to it, working. So if I cancel that and do a down to destroy all the storage, now let's try bringing it up if it enables. So enable said you already have an enabled environment. Oh, because it uses the same volume. So this time I'll do a remove orphans volume. There's a way to tell it to also destroy volumes. There we go. So that will destroy the storage for the public share environment that was working. Now if we say up, it will have to enable with the token from the event, which is going to show up as, oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense. So I might have this problem if I switched over to a self-hosted instance instead of the testing instance. Okay. How quickly can I spin that up? 30 minutes? I don't want to do it right now. I'm going to call this good. That's a couple hours of excellent progress. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream unless anybody has any last minute questions. Thanks for joining. This was great. Got zrok, public share, private share, and private access working in separate Docker Compose projects, and got enable working. I think we ran out of invites for the testing instance, or enable tokens rather. I got too many environments going on at the same time. Where is that? Oh yeah, the staging UI was doing that thing where it goes blank on me. So I think I just have too many of these angling environments, and I can't seem to clean them up with the UI. They're not clickable. So a good follow-up would probably be to check with the team and raise some issues for the stuff that I ran into, and we'll go from there. Bye, everybody.